If you were to put me in somebody else's body and tell me to go from 0 to 70 handstand push-ups, this is exactly what I would do. If you don't know who I am Brandon Maloney. I used to be a varsity wrestler, national level volleyball player, and now I am taking my athletic type training. So I did a lot of athlete type movements, I don't know, just if you look at Mario Rios, look up athletic bodybuilding, basically his thing. I've been doing calisthenics for just over a year now, maybe a year and a month, a year and 2 months, something along those lines. And over that time, I've achieved 90-degree handstand push-ups, 67 handstand push-ups in a session, no dip muscle-ups with added weight, front lever holds for 5 seconds, planche for 2 seconds, something like that. I just started training it. I've done quite a bit. I also train legs. I have a 195, 190 kilo deadlift, something like that. Not quite 200 yet. I've gotten decently strong, or 180, sorry. 180, 175, geez. I wish. I've gotten decently strong over my period of time and in a very short period of time. And I want to be able to give you some lessons and give you some guidance on how you can progress in your best way. If I were to start again, what I would do is I would do almost no progressions. What does that mean? I wouldn't really be doing pike push-ups. I wouldn't really be doing elevated feet holds where you hold with your shoulders through and you really get that mobility going. I wouldn't do any of that. The only things you need to do in order to achieve a handstand is have the right shoulder mobility. So do some stretches where you push your head through a surface. So grab a wall, grab onto your couch or something, push your head through, get super far back. Do that. Hard stretching a couple times a week, 2-3 times a week for 30 seconds. You can do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, literally do 3 sets of 30 seconds, rest 1 minute in between sets. Go decently hard. Stretching requires you to pull relatively hard, but that's all you have to do. It's very simple to get flexible. Next thing I would do is a wrist stretch. I would stretch my wrists. I would try and prepare my joints. I would do all that kind of stuff. All you have to do is get to a point to where you can hold a wall handstand for roughly 10 seconds. The thing is, people don't need to be that strong in order to just do the handstand part. There are 5-year-old girls, 5-year-old gymnasts who have been training for 6 months who are able to do a handstand fairly consistently. I had one come to my house one time. I had a old coaching client who I was working with. He was playing football and all that kind of stuff, and I was coaching him and having him do the athletic type stuff that I was used to back then. And his little sister came and me and her were doing handstands together, and she was beating me in most of it. It's not a strength thing, it's a technique thing. You need to learn the technique. So what I recommend is back to wall, get your feet there, get your feet on the wall, record yourself from the side. If you are at least this straight, then you're completely fine. You don't have to be perfectly straight, especially in the beginning, because 1, nobody really cares. It's significantly more difficult. And 2, if you look at the best calisthenic guys in the world, look up Nathan Bosch. His handstand isn't pretty looking. It's a handstand, and he's really good at literally everything. And I can't speak on him at all because he's better than me in literally every realm of everything. But if you look at just his handstand and you were to say, is this guy an elite level athlete, and you covered his shirt or whatever, someone would go I don't know, he's not very straight. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. All you need to focus on is getting to that 10-second hold. Then what you need to focus on is doing attempts to where you're able to kick up, you're able to hold yourself, and you need to get to a 5 to 15-second hold. If you can do that, then you can move on to the next exercise I'm going to teach you. But in order to do that, it's basically just doing an easier variation of a handstand push-up. So pike presses, or your feet come off the ground, or doing negatives. And then you're going to be doing handstand push-up attempts, and eventually those attempts turn into positive reps where you're actually doing reps. The step 1 of that is getting strong literally everywhere. A lot of guys do pike push-ups, and they'll do weird push-up variations, and they'll do holds and all that kind of stuff. I actually don't like that style of training, and I've seen worse results doing that than what I'm about to tell you. Weighted dips are very, very unique in the sense that you're able to do a ton of weight, so you're potentiated to being able to lift a ton of weight. It's if you're used to deadlifting and then you go to an RDO, it's going to feel a lot lighter than if you went from an RDO to a deadlift. You're potentiated in that way. So your body weight isn't going to feel heavy. Just bear with me. I have a crazy theory about this, and it's worked for people that I've coached. when you do weighted dips, one, you're able to load it better. Two, it's more modifiable. So like a pike push-up, for example, once you get to like wall handstand push-ups, if you're able to do like 3 of them, like you're more than strong enough to start training handstand push-ups. Like it isn't the same movement. There's no benefit to it. It's like doing a machine press trying to get better bench. Like, yeah, it might make a tiny difference, but the stability requirement is completely different. I think the wall is the most like fitness matrixy nonsense in the calisthenics community, and I don't understand why. It's a good learning tool. It's not the thing that's going to take you from point A to point B. It's a learning tool. That's all that it is, and people treat it like it's not. People treat it like, yeah, if you just do this exercise, you'll just unlock the handstand push-up by itself. No, you do the most specific thing, which is the attempts, and obviously the getting stronger is a general strength, and the secondary stuff, maybe even the primary stuff, depending on where you are in your journey. But we want to get stronger at the actual movement. So why are you putting me on a wall when I can do 10 dirty reps and you're saying, oh yeah, next time we're going to do them cleaner? No, I'm more than strong enough. Dirty reps and clean reps are basically the same thing, because my dirty reps are going to be dirty when I do the regular handstand push-ups anyway, because I'm not used to them, because you haven't had me do the technique yet. You kind of see what I'm going for? I want you to get strong. If you can get to 50% of your body weight for 10 reps on weighted dips, then you're more than there. Don't freak out at the number. I'm going to teach you exactly how to get there. It's really not that difficult, especially if you can do like 10, 15 dips right now. It'll take you maybe like, I want to say like 2 months. If you can do like 10, 15 dips, just off the top of my head, I've had people get it faster. I've had people get it slower, but roughly 2 months if you can do like 10, 15 dips. Getting strong absolutely everywhere. Getting strong in your pull-ups, your dips, you can do all that at the same time. It doesn't really matter. And what I like to do is I like to include some kind of incline press. The thing is, people always talk about military press for like shoulder strength or whatever. But when you're not very good at handstand push-ups yet, it's more like an incline press. And you can train shoulder press. It might apply. It's more of like a general thing. So that's why I don't like pike push-ups, is because, yeah, they're both general. But the general thing, you should be able to load and keep as consistent as possible. Pike push-ups, if your feet are off like a little bit, the force is different. And if you're too lean forward, then it's super hard at the bottom. Or if you're not lean forward enough, then it's super easy at the bottom and harder at the top. Like, it's just not a very good movement in my opinion. And also there's not a very deep range of motion. So if you're doing it for like muscle growth sake, then it's probably not going to build a ton of muscle either. So it's kind of dependent. Obviously, if that's all you have, then that's all you have. But military press might even be a better option. The reason why I think an incline press, like a chest press or a incline barbell press, which I think is personally best, is because of the fact that when you first start off, handstand push-up isn't straight up and down. Most people, especially even like the more advanced guys I've seen who aren't very like big or muscular but are decent at the skills, they go down and it's like this. They arch and they go more horizontal. That's because your chest is bigger and stronger than your shoulders are. If you went straight up and down, it would be harder. If you lean forward, you can use your really strong chest and you can push forward. If you strengthen that component ridiculously, like just train it at the same time as your dips, I don't really have like a strength specific number for that. Train the same time as your dips. I'm going to be explaining to you like kind of the basic roadmap even more so. Again, this is a full guide, so I'm assuming you have an attention span. Getting to that point to where it's just like strong, maybe doing your body weight for like 8 reps, something along those lines is probably realistic within the same amount of time. If not, then you can be a little bit lighter, like within 60 to 80%, I would guess, for like 8-10 reps is probably fine. I don't know an exact metric on that like I do with dips, but that's all. If you're interested in getting strong, also I want you to train your wrists, get your wrists strong doing like this type of thing off a bench, training your wrists. Again, we want it to be highly loadable, highly specific. The reason why I have you do it off a bench is because it puts pressure on the joint, which is what we want because we're conditioning the joint. I don't like exercises like this. 1, because I can't do them, but 2, because it doesn't really feel the same as like a handstand. Obviously, this doesn't feel the same, but again, we're looking for general strength. If you can wrist curl 50 kilos, which isn't that difficult, I got there in like a couple of months, and I'm not very heavy. I weigh like 62. If you can get to the point to where you're doing wrist curls with a heavy weight, this is going to be nothing. Because I was able to wrist curl, let's say, I'm going to use pounds here because I'm American and my small brain can't convert it. I was able to wrist curl 110 pounds for reps. I weigh 140. When I go into a handstand, it's only 70 pounds each hand. And I know because of the amount of time under tension that I use and all that type of stuff, that's easy. That's like a warm-up set for a wrist curl. So you kind of have to apply it to the rest of like your split and kind of have to think about it in a more general sense. I love weightlifting for calisthenics. I could be a complete moron. I could be completely out of pocket, whatever. But I really do believe that weightlifting is the key to unlocking calisthenic skills for beginners. Obviously, if you're a more advanced guy, if you've been training like 5 years plus, maybe weightlifting isn't like the optimal thing for you to do, or maybe incorporating it a little bit just to kind of boost your level. I think if you haven't spent at least like 3 years of your training career, 2 years of your training career dedicated to like pretty serious weightlifting. Obviously, if you care more about calisthenics, like doing weights once, twice a week is completely fine. But if you haven't put in that much time to it, I think you're significantly ruining your progress because it's just such an overpowered thing. Like you're able to load it up, you're able to get strong, and within that 1 to 3 year period, usually not 3 years, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, even if you're like Eddie Hall and you're able to have newbie gains up to like the world record deadlift. If you're within like that 1 to 2 year period, you're still experiencing newbie gains. You're going to get a significant amount of progress for not very much work. You're not going to have to optimize a ton. You're not going to have to work very hard to make this crazy amount of progress. So the diminishing returns are very low for you. As you get more advanced, the diminishing returns up. So what that means is the difference between a 80 kilo dip or 80 kilo pull up, let's say, and a 90 kilo pull up when transitioning it to muscle ups is huge. Now, a 10 kilo increase when you're already that strong, that's probably going to take you like another 4 to 6 months to add. Let's say you weigh 100 kilos and you're going from 80 to 90 to add like another, oh God, my math could be completely wrong. Add like another 5% ish to your weighted pull up. You're going to get 5% better at explosive muscle ups after you train them. No, you're just going to train them and you're probably at the strength level to where you're able to do no dips anyway. Now, if you're progressing quickly, that's different. But most people at that level aren't going to be able to progress very quickly. So you kind of have to see where it is for you. Are you making good progress? Are you constantly adding weight each session very easily, even when you have bad sleep, even when you didn't eat properly the day before? And when you hyper optimize, when you eat good, when you sleep good, when you're training very hard, are you making crazy progress along with skills training? And are you doing all the right things? Are you recovering? Is everything going well? Everything feels fine, all that kind of stuff. So it's super dependent, but getting to 50% of your body weight for 8 or for 10 on dips, training your wrists to be at a decent level of strength. You can train them literally at the end of every session. Like you can do this for the rest of your life. Like genuinely every 2 or 3 days for the rest of your life, you can train your forearm. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can train different movements, you can do all this kind of stuff, but every day for the rest of your life, every 3 days for the rest of your life, you can train your forearms. Like that's one of the things that give up the least as you age is forearm strength. So that's super important. And also it's going to apply to your handstands. And I've noticed it applies a little bit to planche with like general wrist strength. The thing is I haven't trained my thumb. So my thumb is actually the thing limiting me in my planche. It's not even like shoulder or elbow strength. It's literally like, is my thumb just going to hurt enough for me to have to let go? That's been the end of a couple of attempts that could have been really good where like everything was set in. Like I was genuinely like perfect, like completely straight, arms were locked out, protracted, like depressed, all that kind of stuff. And then my thumb like hurt like crazy and I injured it and then I had to take a break. Now it's feeling like kind of 70%. I'm going to try doing some lighter session stuff tomorrow, but we'll see what happens there. After you get to this level, after you get to a decent level of strength, during this time, you can do wall holds, you can do regular holds, you can even do the progressions I talked about before, just you're going to progress a little bit slower. Again, you can combine them, just it's going to affect your weights a little bit because it's too difficult on the muscles. So when you do skills and you're already strong, it's not very difficult on your muscles because you already know that you can push significantly more weight than that. Like the weighted dips, the potentiation thing, like I was talking about before, where you're used to pushing 120 kilos because you're 60 kilos and you can do dips with 60 kilos. When you go to handstand push-ups and you're holding 60 kilos, the muscles aren't the thing that's going to be taxed. Yeah, it's going to feel weird because you're not used to the movement, but if you have giant triceps and chest and shoulders, that's going to apply to basically every pushing movement. When you're working on this, you can do the progressions I'm about to share. During this time, you are going to be doing negatives Or you're going to be doing a positive variation, which is like the pushing aspect. So that can be pike presses, that can be L sits to handstands, that can be negative handstand holds, that could be literally any like handstand push-up progression, but like very close to it, like one progression away. And then once you get to a level to where I'm going to be explaining to you your progression model in a second. Once you're able to do like 5 or 8 total reps of that, then you're going to switch to handstand push-ups, and you're just going to be doing attempts, and you're going to do a ton of attempts. Focusing on attempts and then upping volume is the most important thing. For skills, a lot of people talk about for like hypertrophy, like Mike Mentzer 2-set method, like that's all nonsense. For hypertrophy and strength, it's a little bit different. There are periods where you do lower volume, you go higher intensity. Obviously, you know how to do it. That doesn't mean start doing HIIT training right now. There's periodization for a reason. But for skills, it's actually a lot more beneficial to do higher volumes. So if I were to tell you do 40 sets, you with like your hypertrophy strength training mind might think, oh, that's way too much. I'm going to like lose out on gains. If you can handle 40 sets of handstand push-ups, like you're able to do 6 reps max, or you're able to do 8 reps max, but you do 40 sets of 2. Obviously, I'm not telling you to do 40 sets of 2. The most I've ever done for like a long period of time is 20 sets. So that was like high for me. That took over an hour for me to complete. And it's over an hour of literally doing like 2 handstand push-ups that are super easy, resting, and then going on with the rest of my training. Obviously, I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying that this extent can go very high depending on how serious you want to take the skill and how like much you want to progress in it on a technical aspect. This is mostly for technique, the high volume, and I'm going to be explaining it. When you have a skill that requires balance and that you can't do very often because like your joints hurt and all that kind of stuff. And again, high volume ruins your joints a lot more. So this is why you need to be conditioned and be strong already. Because if you're a skinny guy and you're jumping into 40 sets, and again, I'm going to use 20 now because 40 is kind of ridiculous, but you're jumping into 20 sets. Oh my God, your wrists are going to explode. If you're already strong, it's going to take a couple of sessions to get used to the new position, like being hyperextended and all that kind of stuff. But after like 2 weeks, I've seen in a lot of cases, wrists are completely fine. You could do 20 plus sets and be completely fine. One of my coaching clients, he was doing like 10 sets every other day of like long handstand holds because he was able to recover and the rest of the plan fit that. And that's what he wanted to do in progressing. You're able to do a ton of volume. That's 40 sets a week of like high holds. So when I'm talking about like 40 sets of like in one workout, that's mostly of attempts. So when I got my first handstand push-up, just to put it in perspective for you, when I did my first handstand push-up, it took me 42 attempts that workout. And then the next workout, I did 6 reps or 7 reps in 6 sets. So I did a set of 2, my second time ever doing them. High volume, doing lots of sets is going to be the most beneficial thing for you. You're going to slowly ramp up to this. You're going to progress over time. And the main factor you're looking at is your total reps going up. So obviously you can work on like reps per set, but I would do that after you get to at least 50 handstand push-ups, like in one session, before you focus on like a max out set, because you're not good enough at them to be able to even balance for that long unless you're like really good at balance. And even then you can do so much more if you were to get stronger and you got more proficient, like technically in the overhead position for the movement. What you're going to do is you're going to focus on total reps, which means you're going to focus on amount of sets that you do. You're going to do a ton of them, and they're all going to be relatively low intensity, and you're going to have like relatively high rest time. So if you were to look at 10 sets of 4, for example, or 4 sets of 10, let's say you're really strong. You do 4 sets of 10. The quality of those last few reps are not going to be in par with the sets of 2. Because you're going to be rushed, you're going to be looking for 10 reps, even if you're like super intentful with it. Like the final reps, unless you're like super disciplined with it, the final reps are going to be like pushed a little bit harder. They're going to be more grindy. They're not going to be as smooth. You're not going to be able to focus on your technique as much because you're focused more on pushing really hard versus just getting the reps done and being technical with it. If you were to do 20 sets of 2, which is the same amount of work, so 40 reps in total, if you were to do that, then the first 15 sets are going to be really easy. So you're going to be able to do significantly more volume that's high quality. So you're not falling over, you're not having to worry about pushing hard, you're not using like weird kimp with your hips or anything to try and get up. This is how you progress in dynamics go. So like muscle ups, so like handstand push-ups. So anything where there's pushing or pulling in a dynamic way, this is how you progress. And that's how I've been progressing in planche push-ups. I can't hold a planche really, but I can do planche push-ups because I'm so strong. And like weighted dips, for example, it just applies to everything. Having big triceps and shoulders and chest and all that kind of stuff just helps. It just flat out does. So if that's something that you disagree with, that's completely fine. I've been like, I had a like vision of Super Clarkson reacting to this with his Estonian accent, like making fun of me and like bullying me. Do you ever get that? Like you're saying something and then somebody you look up to, like in your head, is saying something like, "Oh, well, you're an idiot, stupid face," and you like kind of feel bad. I don't feel bad really. I believe all this stuff, which is why I'm sharing it. But anyways, just a fun little thing. How you can compare whether or not you should do more reps or more sets is, so you're going to keep the intensity fairly low for each set. You're going to have like a ton of reps in reserve unless it's like your last couple of sets. Obviously, you can go from like the range, I would say, is probably like minimum 6 sets all the way up to 20, ramp up from there, progress from there. The fun little equation that I wrote down and I kind of shared with people in one of my communities. I have like a paid community. I have the free one, link below, link in the description, bro. It's free. But I also have a paid one. The equation that I shared, which was just kind of a fun thing, but people found it kind of valuable, so I'm going to share it with you, is results equal volume, so the amount of sets that you do. So let's say you do 10 sets multiplied by 1.5, which sounds a little bit weird, but just bear with me. And then you add the intensity, so the RPE essentially, like the amount of sets or the amount of reps that you do. So the amount of reps that you do, so like the total reps, actually, I thought I remembered that wrong. It's a total rep. So volume multiplied by 1.5, total reps multiplied by 1.2, and then technique multiplied by 0.5, and then you divide the whole thing by 10 just to get a simpler number. The 10 doesn't really mean anything, just it's to give you a simpler, like smaller number, just so you can look at it easier. When you do the same amount of total reps, this equation will favor doing the higher volume, the higher number of sets. If you do a similar number of reps, even if you were to do more total reps with higher intensity but lower sets, it'll still sometimes favor the lower number of reps because the quality will be higher. Now, if you can do more total reps with more sets, then that's good also. Another thing that I don't have written down, I'm about to give you a summary, but another thing I don't have written down is modifying your workouts based on what you're doing that day. So you can't go hard every single day because your joints will just explode unless you're like super conditioned to the level of like, because obviously you still need like the specific conditioning. I can tell you like do wrist curls until you're blue in the face, but if you got the best arm wrestlers in the world who have the strongest wrists on the planet, you had them do enough handstand holds, 40 attempts per session every single day, 2 sessions a day, 80 attempts per day. Yeah, they would probably have a little bit hurt wrists and it wouldn't feel nice because they're not used to it. They might get used to it after a certain amount of time because like the adaptation period or whatever, but they probably wouldn't like it very much. What you can do is, this is what I spammed. I would do 2 hard sessions a week when I would like focus on handstand push-ups. And then what I would do is I would do like another 3 or 4 sessions, light to moderate. So I would pick anywhere from 30% of what I would normally do up to 70% of what I would normally do. And I would condense it, and I would do that with the sets. So I would still do like 5 reps, for example, but I would do less sets. So instead of 10 sets, I would do 3 or I would do 5 or whatever. You can do it based on total reps. It doesn't really matter, just whatever fits with the rest of your plan. Again, they all kind of lead to a very similar result, just there's better like pieces to fit into the puzzle, like depending on the circumstance, all that kind of stuff. In summary, I want you to ignore all progressions. I want you to get strong everywhere. I want you to join my free program. I want you to focus on attempts and then upping the volume. Do the most specific thing in the simplest roadmap you possibly can. I teach all of this in more detail inside of my creative mode protocol. Again, free in the description, all that kind of stuff. The like skills equation that I have is results equals volume multiplied by 1.5 plus the intensity, so the total amount of reps that you do, this also works for total time, multiplied by 1.2 plus technique times 0.5. So the technique would be like on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is your technique? And then divide that by 10, just to give you a simpler number. That should be everything. If you're interested in the creative mode protocol, first link in the description. That has been everything. My name has been Brandon. If you have any questions, ask me in the comment. Go to the pinned comment, reply to it, all that kind of stuff. Cheers.